Hi there, Sandra here and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you my favorite papers for painting with gouache. Over all these years I've been painting, I've tried many different kinds of watercolor paper and it took me a long time to find the papers that were the most suitable for my art style and the way I personally work. So today I'm going to share with you the papers I currently enjoy using, which are Clairefontaine Etival cold press watercolor paper, acid-free, 100% cellulose, 300 GSM, Hahnemühle torchon watercolor paper, acid-free, natural white, age-resistant, 275 GSM, Hannan Moulay Mixed Media paper, acid-free, natural white, age-resistant, 265 GSM, and last but not least, Arteza cold press watercolor paper, dual-sided, acid-free, 300 GSM. I prepared a template to test the papers and show you their characteristics. For this template, I took inspiration from Sadie Saves the Day, where Sadie reviewed some of the Hahnemühle watercolor paper. Hahnemühle has so many types of papers, so I will leave the link to her channel in the description if you'd like to see the reviews of more Hahnemühle watercolor paper. Sadie also uploads many videos about watercolors, so definitely check her out. I made this template based on the main characteristics that are more important to me to see how the paper behaves, but also to show you the strengths and flaws of each paper. And afterward, I'm going to show you some illustrations I painted by using these papers. So we are going to test detail strokes, lifting, glazing, mixing two different washes, if the paper gets easily damaged by erasing, masking fluid and masking tape. And since I use gouache, I decided to do both thin and thick washes to show you how these papers behaves with gouache. My favorite surface is cold press paper because it's not too textured and not too smooth either, so it's great to paint fine details. Which, if you don't know, and this might be the first video you are watching from me, my art style is very detailed, so cold press paper is the perfect surface for me because it suits the best my art style and the way I like to work. Just a heads up before we get into the testing part, maybe I didn't do the best job by swatching the colors, but I hope you will still be able to see their characteristics either way. I will start with Arteza, which is actually a paper I just tried about a month ago, but already became one of my favorite papers because recently I collaborated with Arteza, where they sent me their watercolor paper and gouache paint to try and review. I already published my video review about Arteza, so if you are interested to watch the video, I will leave the link to the video in the description so you can check it out. But I really love this paper because the front side, so the cold press side, it has exactly the perfect cold press texture, which I've always been looking for, so it's great for fine details. This paper absorbs well the paint, both thin and opaque washes, they look very nice once dried. It's nice and enjoyable to paint on this paper and the colors remain vibrant too. But it does buckle when painting. Although it goes back to flat quite well, I still recommend to stretch the paper or simply taping the paper to a board when painting with lots of water. Unfortunately, the paints get easily lifted up by water, but on the illustrations I painted so far, you can still overlay layers of colors without much problems. But this paper gets damaged easily by eraser, masking fluid and masking tape. Next is Clairefontaine. Compared to my other favorite papers, the surface is more textured, but is still great for fine details. To me, this paper is really suitable for watercolors because it has one of the greatest absorption capacity, which I've never experienced it in other watercolor papers I tried so far, because there is no lifting at all, so it's a great paper if you like to work with many layers of paint. Also, the way this paper behaves and absorbs the paint, you can easily get nice watercolor effects, but also nice looking flat washes if you're careful on how much water you use. This paper also doesn't buckle much when painting, and it doesn't get damaged when erasing or using masking fluid and masking tape. Next is Hahnemühle torchon. For the way this paper is made, it has such a unique and special surface. The way this paper absorbs the paint and the way the paint flows on this paper is great, but it is different compared to other watercolor papers. Since the surface is so unique, you can also achieve a unique wash result, which for me this is the beauty of this paper. It seems quite textured, but when you touch it, it's quite smooth. So as you can see, it's also great for detailed strokes, but this paper buckles the most when applying a lot of water compared to the other papers, but it goes back to flat without problems. But also here I recommend to stretch the paper or simply taping the paper to a board while painting. Although there is a little bit of lifting, on this paper you can still overlay layers of paint without problems. There is also a bit of damage when erasing and when using masking tape, but not really with masking fluid. Last but not least, Hahnemühle Bamboo Mixed Media paper. This is also a paper I recently tried but already became one of my favorites. Compared to most watercolor papers that are made by cotton fibers, this is made by 90% bamboo fibers and 10% cotton rag. It's a more environmentally conscious paper because, as you can also read on Hahnemühle website, bamboo is a multi-year reed that produces more oxygen than a broadleaf tree. In addition that this paper is more environmentally friendly, which I love, it's also great quality. Colors flow beautifully on this paper and the vibrancy of the colors are preserved. It absorbs well the paint and the washes look very nice, but in my opinion this paper is more suitable for thick application of paint because when I paint a thin wash on this paper, once dried it has a strange effect, which I don't really know why that happens. I mean, you can paint thin washes on this paper as well, which I also do, but just to let you know that this strange effect can happen. I also think this paper is more suitable for other mediums rather than watercolors because the paint can easily be lifted up, but especially because the thick washes dry so nicely and it's such a pleasure working with thick application of paint on this paper. So that's why, in my opinion, this paper is more suitable for opaque washes rather than thin washes. This paper doesn't really buckle when painting. To me, what is so unique about this paper is that the surface is quite rough when you touch it, but it's actually quite smooth when painting, so it's great for detailed strokes too. It also feels so nice and special to touch this paper. I can't describe by words the feeling, but somehow this paper really feels special to me. But just remember that this paper is very delicate, so it gets damaged quite badly when erasing and when using masking tape and masking fluid. So yeah, that's it. Now I'm going to show you some of the illustrations I painted on these papers, so you can have a better idea how these papers behave and perform. But I'd like to point it out that especially when it comes to paper, but what I'm about to say is also meant for any kind of art supplies. Everyone works differently and have a different style, so if you'd like to try one of these papers after my video, just keep in mind that the papers I use might not work for you and it might not suit the way you work. It's very difficult for me to find the perfect paper that suits perfectly every characteristic I need the paper to have, and to be honest, I still haven't found the perfect paper yet. But these are my top 4 favorite papers that suits the best how I work. Maybe the closest to top 1 is Hahnemühle torchon, but because they all behave differently, I don't only use one paper, but instead I choose the paper in accordance to the final result I want to achieve when I paint a new illustration. I think as an artist it's totally okay to use more than one type of paper. For example, when I started painting seriously, I didn't have the knowledges I have today about papers. It took me a long time to figure out that cold press paper was the right surface for my style and for the way I like to work. Since my style is quite precise and detailed, I like to add many thin lines and fine details on my illustrations, but I don't like smooth surface because it's too slippery for me. So then I understood that cold press was the right surface for me. So that's why I want you to know that papers are a subjective preference. But yeah, I think that's all. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below and I will be happy to reply to you. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye!